This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. Today's guest has lived through several major waves of technology and helped shape a few of them along the way. Rupen Chanda is currently the CTO at Bluescape, and over the years, he's held senior engineering and product leadership roles at companies like Adobe and BlackBerry, working at the intersection of platforms, collaboration, and large-scale technology change. In this conversation, we go beyond titles and talk about the inflection points that shaped Rupen's career, how mindset plays a role in navigating uncertainty, and what it's really like to lead teams through constant technological disruption. We will dive deep into AI, how Rupen sees the transformation in the tech industry over the next decade, how he's applying it in practice at Bluescape, and what concepts like Industry 5.0 mean when theory meets reality. We will also explore what this rapid pace of change means for education, careers, and personal growth, and why human qualities still matter deeply in an AI-driven world. And to round things out, we will step away from the keyboard and talk about how Rupen recharges, stays inspired, and keeps perspective outside of tech. Rupen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for inviting me. Much appreciated.
Rupen, you are now CTO at Bluescape and have held senior engineering and product leadership roles at Adobe, BlackBerry, and more. Can you walk us through how you got here and what were the biggest milestones or turning points in your career that shaped where you are today?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to connect with your audience. Um, I know when I got introduced to you, I learned that you have been running this podcast very successfully with a wider audience. So this is great, and you touch many different topics. So certainly, it's a very beneficial for the groups and the teams and community at large. Um, Speaking about yourself is always hard, and in the sense is that it's a fine line between being boastful versus being grounded. I, for the one, I do not like to. For me, humility is very important to me, as it's a personal, my personal trait that I like to believe that. So I'll see what I best I can do. To give you the answer, I started my career with a startup company. It's called Middlesoft. From there, that got acquired by a company called Macromedia. Some of you might know who have been in the industry for at least 20 plus years with the Macromedia Flash. Subsequently, that got acquired by Adobe, and I was at Adobe for a long time. Then I moved to BlackBerry, and then last 7+ years, I've been a startup company called Bluescape. So one of the things very early on in my career that I got advice from the professor, he always said that prioritize learning and knowledge over money. And he told me over and over again that if you prioritize learning, you will see money will automatically follow. And we actually miss that big picture. And so my first critical decision was that when I was graduating from the university, I had quite a few job opportunities. It was right before the dot-com bust. So having a couple of job opportunities, when I seek advice from my professor, he gave me that particular advice. And he also told me that first 5 years of your career, try to stick to a same job so that you can learn. Any job you join, at least first 1 to 2 years, you're in the learning mode. Then after that, it goes exponentially, it goes higher up, you become highly productive. You cannot be a domain expert in 6 months. You just cannot be. It doesn't work that way. So with that advisement, I actually chose a startup companies where part of the startup company I was there. And that actually shaped my career that has an influence even today after 25 years in the industry. So that was the first starting point that, and I had a chance to become a part of the Flash. I'm sure you know that how the Flash changed the internet in the early state. Subsequently, I was in Adobe's Creative Cloud I would say the traction, where the cloud became a very emergent technology in 2009, 2010. Then BlackBerry gave me a big opportunities in terms of the how do you manage, contain a company that is going down, and how do you hold the rein? It's a very difficult job actually. So this kind of shapes me different way. That means it is a very easy to manage team, do things when everything is in ascendancy, but you also need to see the tough time. One of the biggest statement that I have learned, it guides me all the time, is that it says it is the rough sea that makes the best captain. So you have to see the rough sea first. So anyway, so those are the elements I would say gave me the understanding of how to build a mission critical systems, designing platform at scale, uh, you know, focus on making companies successful no matter what. That's very important thing. And then of course, enterprise softwares, usabilities, so many different things. So hopefully that gives you some kind of answers what you're seeking.
I love it, and I love how from the early moments, and thanks to your mentor, you were always trying to learn something for whatever role you were getting, and having the patience to have the time to learn something and to really take something from that experience, right? So you took something for whatever you were taking something from it, learning and taking the time to do that, which is not that normal. It becomes normal as you grow, but when you're starting, for myself, I it took a little bit of time to realize all the things that you're saying. So I'm glad you had that mentor, and that you clearly understood that from the get-go.
Yeah, that's I mean, I am very grateful to some of those people, mentor, my professor in the universities. Um, and I truly cannot emphasize the fact is that the, you know, the humility is so important. Actually, it's the foundation of learning. Um, Here, if I were to give you a very material element of a humility, and I give you a very specific example, so it will help. Maybe I'm digressing, but it's very important in the professional world. So early on, I had a chance to lead people and manage people. I was there. So one of the very important things is that how do you find people? How do you find the right people? How do you evaluate people? Evaluating people is very important and very hard to do it. Statistically speaking, if you interview someone and hire it, you actually have a 50-50 chance. Either they're going to be great or not so great. Somebody might be great in productivity, but such a terrible in team construct, it will be destroying the entire team. Somebody may be great in talk, great in interviews, but when it comes to a real throughput, they don't do anything at all. So then I started developing my mental model that how do I evaluate engineers or etc. So I came up with the team structure. And this actually very early on came into my head. I started realizing that, for any great product and great team that has been built from ground up, if you kind of think of, even if you have a big teams, actually the real knowledge is concentrated in the very, very few small people. You can conceptually think of your team is like an inverted pyramid. At the bottom is your core group of engineers who are literally like, they are the best. They are the heart and soul of your technology. A level above is a medium group. They kind of scale a little more. And then the top, they are kind of scalar. They scale the entire things. They do a lot of busybody work. So now kind of start thinking this way, okay, how do I find those persons? So then what happens is if you look at this, now you say, okay, if this is my team dynamics looks like, how do you qualify, how do you kind of classify the engineers? So I found that you will find certain engineers, very, very senior principal or the very highly knowledgeable individuals, but they have a one or at the most two domains they know the best. Think of this, so they know the 90, 95, 99%, very much in depth. Let's say someone is knowing about the socket. They know about the socket all the way top to bottom. They can write the entire socket layer by themselves, graphics. And as such, you can go subject by subject for that matter. Then there are engineers. So they're actually one or two layers going deep. Then you have a second type of engineers who actually, that's a vast majority, is your who actually know one or two or three, four domains, no more than 3 to 4 domains, everything between 30 to 50, 60%. Actually, vast majority engineers fall under that bucket. And then you have there a certain very rare breed. So first breed that I mentioned, they're actually also much less, very rare. But there's an even rarer breed exist. They actually know very, very broad set of technology, many different domains, anything from 70, 80, even 90% to 30, 40%. You ask them a questions, they can give you answer. So I started thinking, I said, that's a very interesting way. So around 3 years ago, I came across a particular article written by actually a UX person. And this person somehow touched this topic. I said, somebody else is also thinking like this way. And that individual, I forgot that author's name, came up with a very interesting idea. He said that this first level domain expert, you call them as a T-shape engineer. They know few things, know that. Then you have a people who then you have a little, common, the most of general engineers, and the one that kind of knows the domain, many domains, call them as a V-shape engineer. So finding the V-shapes engineers are super hard. T-shape is also harder, but the rest falls in the bucket. So in the career progression, you need to think yourself, which quadrant I want to. If I'm an engineer, forget about engineering. Go to any professions. Even if you go for the car mechanic, auto mechanic, wherever you go, you have to figure out where you want to fall under. And that kind of will drive. And that once you set the perspective, then you have to work towards it.
That makes sense. Let's change gears from your vantage point. How do you foresee AI transforming the broader tech industry over the next 5 to 10 years? And what shifts excite you the most? And what challenges do you anticipate?
I want to first preface the fact is that anybody who is trying to predict futures, we all will be wrong. So, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say. Okay, it's my perspective, but I have a 99% certainty that I'll be wrong. I might have some perspective, but I'm going to share my perspective.
Fair enough.
My first perspective that I'm observing is that, and this is, I'm going to quote the Microsoft CEO, that most of the software, SaaS software, any software we know today, they will be completely changed in its structure. Because if you think for a moment that every software, depending upon what it is, it's essentially a series of steps. You as an individual, when you interact, a series of steps are there. So if it is a user-facing software, series of steps, many of the steps will be collapsing. So that means your existing structure will no longer be valid. Case in point, imagine that you are an individual, maybe for your content creations or whatever it is you do, you say, I get a lot of images, and I take this one, open to the Canva, Photoshop, or whatever tool it is, I'm going to modify them, and I'm going to publish it, etc. You can do this entire thing using a simple AI workflow, because this entire thing is AI workflow. So if it is an AI workflow, you might use tools like an N8N type tool that can absorb your data from the data repository, and you kind of have a set of collection of prompts up there. Your AI engine is modifying them, dump it. That means you don't need that particular tool because it's an essential workflow it becomes. So that's a very overly simplistic example I am giving to explain what it would be. What that means is that a lot of the softwares will be very workflow driven, because just the way you have, that's a very important thing, because if you think about it, anything that can be considered as a workflow, it is going to be that way, because what it does, it lets you automate, it lets you have agentic systems. So that's a very important thing. Your toolings will be merging. I would, lately I have been talking to, some other entities who has been asking me about some of the PDF tooling, because we in Bluescape we use the PDF tooling. They were asking how does the PDF tooling is going to change. If you think for a moment, like a vast majority of the PDF documents were actually generated by the Word document, someone has export to PDF, or system tool creates the PDF. Now it's the AI toolings are generating so much of PDF out. So the regular PDF creation tool has a far lesser thing. You kind of simply interact with the chatbot. You say, hey, here's what it is. I like it. Create a PDF. You're done. If you think for a moment, your creation point is completely changed. So what that means is that all the softwares will be reasoning across your document, visuals, conversation, context. You have to take this entirety. You say, what kind of information I have got, what kind of visual images I have got, do I have a conversation, and what is my execution context. You take that into account and you say that is going to impact your software design. And the last I would say is that most of the applications, the user interface is going to go huge changes. And what do I mean by that? If you think of for example, a tools like a Photoshop or SAP tool, any other enterprise tools for that matter. So if you take a SAP tool, for example, or any such, or Monday.com, they have a static application. You have a different set of menus options up there. So if you think of these menu options, there are layers of visuals. And these layers of visuals are pre-designed by their UX designer before, and say, hey, if I click on this button, such and such action is going to happen. I'm going to this UI state. So now imagine that you no longer need that, because that means it will be rather than a menu driven, it becomes an intent driven. And what that means is that your UI no longer becomes a linear, it becomes a non-linear UX modality systems. In fact, one of the company earlier, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I advised them. That's something I explained to them, and they started building some of the stuff. So I think that's where the software is going to go. That's my belief, that in next, it's already started, but I believe that's going to be accelerated next couple of years.
How are you personally using AI at Bluescape, and how do you encourage or push your engineering product teams to embrace AI in their work? And do you have any examples of AI-driven features or workflows you are especially proud of?
So first, I'm going to start with the how do I push my team to use AI. So I'm actually I'm generally not a big believer of pushing things, because if you push, people don't adopt. They need to feel that way because they should have a sense of ownership. So within my team, what I did is that when early on, it's almost 1.5 years, I would say, is that, or a little over than that, we've been talking about it, explaining it. What about this? What about that? Without saying that, thou shall use it. I don't have a 10 commandments saying that you should do that, or you should not do that. No, I cannot tell that. And then we have a lot of kind of open-ended conversation. I say, what if? So for example, we have a penetration testing suite. We employ a third-party company. I personally try to write some little tooling and try to show them that these vendors we engage, we might be reduce our dependency while using this toolings out there. So people start seeing the benefit. Then people themselves saying, okay, how about this? How about that? So so people feel that they are part of the decision-making process rather than they are being told to do so. So that's a very important thing. That's my motto, number one. Number two, how we are doing it. We have I would say, a couple of different ways. One is your individual level. So one of the things, this is my professional opinion, I would tell you, is that AI systems inherently are probabilistic system. It is not a deterministic systems. What that means is that if you tell the system, here is my structured prompt, I want to design such and such software. Great. It wrote the entire software. You found that there are a couple of mistakes up there. Then you say, oh, I have such and such mistakes. It goes and fixes it. It introduces some other mistakes. Then you go and say, fix that one, introduce another mistakes. So what that means is that this vibe coding, the way we know, it sounds great to put out a petfood.com website or some kind of flower shop website or something like that. But the moment you want to have a serious applications, it really doesn't work that way. And it actually has a very interesting implication that I would tell you very early on in my career. One of my mentor told me. One of the mentor told me is that very clearly, writing your own code is far more easier than reading and understanding someone else's code, because you do have to get into that person's brain, that person's logic, that person's analytical thinking, logical thinking, and then from there to decipher what is the right or wrong. Here in this case, 25 years later, right now, if you think about it, if AI is writing a bunch of code, if someone says that, hey, how do I fix it? You actually have get into that someone else's code, in this case, the AI engine who wrote the code, you have to understand and fix it. So what that means is that creating an enterprise-driven software, an enterprise-focused software, top to bottom, it's not there yet. It is not there. It's a quite a bit way to go. So what do we do here for an individual level? For example, product analysis or the competitive market analysis. Engineers doing like code snippet. We say here's a little piece of code I need to write. Give the specific, get that piece done. Unit testing, automated testing. So there are all kinds of individual level functionalities. We take advantage of it. A lot of busybody product management documentation work. We take a heavy advantage of that. Some of the testing thing, we advantage of it. And we are building some of the content native AI workflow systems we ourselves are building in our Bluescape itself. And we have several, some of our customers are actually US government, several branches of Defense Department, and a bunch of enterprises as well. So we work with them to develop a bunch of technologies in this space. And so there are many customer use cases there. That's what we are building.
Very good. Now, Rupen, and we talked about this when we were getting ready for the podcast. Some people are talking about a new industrial revolution, sometimes dubbed Industry 5.0, where AI, human-machine collaboration, and digital systems reshape not only software, but also how industries operate. What does that mean in your view, and how realistic is that future?
So I would give you some specific examples. I have seen that the technology company makes technology, but there are lots and lots of industries outside of technology companies are far bigger than technology. If you combine whether it's a healthcare to manufacturing companies are a big thing, right? Or the logistics, you can name industry or the healthcare and as such. And one of my observation is that especially in the many cases, whether it's your small mom and pop shop to the large companies, the adoption of the technology at the manufacturing level, not just simply IT management, ERP system, but really the manufacturing space, are actually far less than you would imagine. So what's happening here is that one of the things I am observing in some context, I've been involved with quite a few entities. I do believe that, as I mentioned earlier, that you have this called the workflow automation. The workflow automation is going to come into play. What's going to happen is that there are many of this kind of manufacturing industries, if you read the history, I was not born during that time, during the steam engine invention, how the steam engine invention kind of completely changed the industry. I do believe that, both for the AI and side-by-side robotics will have a similar implications. What that means? Well, it means that there will be a lot of people's job will be impacted. I would not sugarcoat it. How? I cannot tell you. I do not know how it's going to impact it. But what's going to happen is that there'll be a lot of new roles are going to come in to supervisory role. What do I mean by that? If you imagine, let's say you are the CEO of a company. You cannot automate everything because at the end of the day, you need an assurance. AI automated engine is not going to give assurance. So what that means is that there will be a lot of roles who will be, think of like you having your own team. In this case, team is your team of bots. They are running and you are providing the assurance. So that means that has a follow-up implications. That means you as an employee, for you to have an understanding of system thinking, and there are many other, that comes to the whole topic of education and learning, how it's going to impact it. That's a different topic. But it is that workflow automation, robotics, will have a significant impact. In my humble opinion, the way steam engine changed our industry, the industrial revolution, this is going to create a next level of industrial revolution. You can think of is you have a 24/7 manufacturing factories running all the time. This also means that the companies or manufacturing industry will be very capital intensive because you have to invest a lot of capitals. And the people's educations and the understanding needs to be level up as well. And so there's implications of our productivity is going to increase. So that's what I see how it's going to be. It's going to evolve.
So interesting, and you touched upon my next question actually. With how fast AI is evolving, job requirements are transforming. You were mentioning that, right? But how should education then, formal or informal, change to prepare people for this new world we are talking about?
I'm actually personally impacted by this in the sense is that I have my son who is just, a couple of weeks ago turned 8 years old. So I certainly, once again, I'm going to preface with the fact is that I do not know everything. I do not know. And I do not have a magic crystal ball where I can say, hey, here is the definite is going to happen this way. Having said that, however, I do believe I have some, myself or other people who are in the industry kind of spend some of the time thinking, etc. We have some unique vantage point to see, okay, here there's a probably it might be impacting this way. So from that probabilistic standpoint, I do believe that current school education as well as university educations are pretty much, semi-obsolete. Many cases. In fact, to be completely candid with you, that was one of my son who just started second grade in last August. After seeing everything, after talking to my wife, we made a decision of homeschooling my child. We started homeschooling it. And you say, Ruben, what does it mean really? So how does it, at the broad level, let's come in the broad level. Broad level is your, I'll give you a classic example so that you can understand. If I want my son to learn geometry, I don't want him to essentially just simply say, okay, here is on the paper, pen, I'm going to draw the line, geometry, understand all the triangles, I understand the coordinate system as such. You have to really understand what it means. And sometimes, how do you visualize it? How do you understand it, what it is? Because if you don't have fundamental understanding, just memorizing it or just passing for exams will not help. So in this example, I'll give you specific examples. My son wanted a drone for his birthday. So what I did, I got a drone. But then what I did is that I went to the playground. I put boxes, layout boxes on the field. Think of like a bunch of squares, lay them out. I made them drone to sit in the center. Then I tried to teach him what's the 0 degree means, what's the 90 degree means, what's the 180 means, what's the 270 means, clockwise, anti-clockwise, essentially teaching him the entire coordinate system. I'm asking him to control the drone, fly up, go to the different angles, land them. So for him, it's a fun. He's going to fly up, precision control down. So first I want to teach him the entire 2D coordinate systems. Once he understands, I'm going to teach him the volumetric coordinate systems. So if you think about it, it's actually more of a system level thinking. So it is, you have to learn science, math, geography, history. So our education system needs to change. And by that would encourage this, one of my inspiration is actually Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman always says that, you have to think and understand. So Richard Feynman is, in my humble opinion, is a more relevant now than ever that you have to truly understand. And that means our curriculum needs to change. Our curriculum needs to be updated. You have to think science as math is not just simply solving the problem. You essentially have to more practically apply it and understanding, because once you do that, once your foundation is strong, then you have to progress very quickly. You can do that. You use those tools to progress. And that's how I see is that, like, and it's kind of sad. I find that, 50, 60, 70 years passed, Richard Feynman died, but many people, he was one of the greatest educator, you know, and we lost that philosophy in our education systems. But I do believe that he's very relevant, his inspiration.
Oh, it's amazing. I love your vision, and AI can be a part of that solution. I agree with you. Gone are the days of simple memorization. You were bringing me back to my education, right? When I went through university, I'm an attorney. I had these crazy exams where I needed to, memorize, I don't know, maybe 800 to 1,000 articles from the law and just spit them out as I was going through the exam, right? And that didn't make any sense whatsoever because even working, I will have the civil code right by my side, right? That memorization was like, I don't know. I guess it's a way that professors found to evaluate thousands and thousands of students, right? And it was a way of going about it, but it doesn't make any sense whatsoever anymore. So I like your way of thinking. Let me ask you this. In a world increasingly shaped by AI and rapid technology change, everything that we are discussing, what do you think are the personal qualities, skills, or habits that will help people succeed?
Um, this is also a evolving, I would say, mindset, my own development mindset, because I am myself into this entire thing. As of now, in my humble opinion, of the first and foremost is a system level thinking. It's very important, very, very important. And our education needs to even enforce that system level thinking. And why it is? Well, as a previous conversation for the so-called the industrial 5.0, you would gradually see every individual becomes essentially a lead or the overseer of a set of bots or systems are there. So if these bots are doing all the work, in order for you to evaluate, you are not touching only one thing. You have to think about the entire thing, how this entire thing works. Workflow is no longer the one thing. It's essentially entirety from the start to finish. So if you don't have the system level thinking, it becomes very difficult for you to succeed. So that's the number one. Number two is your humility, or more specifically, intellectual humility. If you don't have that, it will become extremely difficult. And why so? Well, you will find yourself, like it or not, we as a human being, how much our brain capacity we have got, uh, there is no way no human being can literally memorize the entire internet, for that matter, everything, all the knowledge base. So that means information retrieval by the systems will be far faster. Pattern matching will be far faster. So having the intellectual humility, but then what you need is how do you do the grounding and the logical reasoning? System might come up with something. How do you reason through it? And that means the logical analysis, logical thinking is extremely important. So system might be end up presenting you something that you do not know. So now you have a responsibility on your side, is that learn fast, quickly, understand quick, grasp quickly, apply your system level thinking filter, come to the conclusion, validate, because it is the human in the loop. So if you are a CEO has a bunch of subordinates who are responsible for this vast set of systems, and who are essentially, think of like their neck is on the line. And those are the traits. If you have it, you would essentially be successful. And the last and but not least is a bias towards action. And what does it mean really? I'll give you a very classic examples we often hear. Even in my company, we kind of encounter. I was When you interface with some of the companies and enterprises, big enterprises, you try to close a sales deal. You know where your deal gets stuck most? It takes the longest time. It's in the procurement and legal. It will go for months and months and months and months just to go through procurement and legal. And you ask yourself, in fact, I was talking to my wife yesterday, saying that, why is that? So my opinion, I'll give you my opinion. And there's a reason for I'm giving this example. Oftentimes, a company's legal team and procurement team are in the finance. They're under the finance authority. And what happens is that there is not much accountability there. So if you think about for a moment, a 10-page legal document, you do a back and forth. It cannot take 5 months. It really cannot. I mean, I cannot imagine that a legal document took that much to review back and forth. You can go back and forth, just the people don't do it because there is no account. So you have this, now these jobs, if you think of for a moment, I'm an engineer. In fact, without getting specifics, I was conversing in some context with somebody. There are actual legal software comes up. So if you imagine a moment, let's say you have a legal contract is there. You need someone to evaluate redlining and etc. Here is a law, some industry corporate lawyer you hire. It takes 3 months to get job done. At some point, someone is going to notice why it is getting stuck. It's a matter of, everything is a matter of time because it is all driven by the cost dollars. If it is going to that long, they'll bring the tool, pass the contract to the system. In fact, there are, some of the companies, they have intelligent documents. There are a bunch of already software, so people are working through it. So what that means is that these people who are going to take that much time to run the procurement legal, it is no longer be the case. So now apply that to your job. If you don't have the bias towards action, well, someone else in the machine is going to be more productive than you. And that's very important, very, very important. So system level thinking, intellectual humility, bias towards action, I think at the top level, and the logical analysis capabilities, those are the ones I would say would be recipe for success.
You had a long career and you lived through major shifts in technology. I love how you talk about this, and I want to hear it again, and I want the audience to hear this. How has mindset influenced your journey? What advice will you give to someone trying to force their own path in uncertain times?
First and foremost, I would say, don't be fragile. Because if there is one thing that you want to learn very early on in your career, is that not being overly sensitive, not being overly fragile. Uncertainty is part of life, actually. No matter what level you are in, how wealthy or not wealthy you are, uncertainty is actually the part of life. And if you do not know how to deal with uncertainty, you actually will not be going up the career ladder. I'll give you an example. A CEO of a company actually knows that 3 quarters from now, I actually don't know how much revenue I'm going to have. So CEO gets exposed to all sorts of uncertainty. But then, let's say a test engineer or a project manager, all day is that, okay, I have this project, I'm working on it. It has a one year timeline. I have such and such work needs to be done. They're not exposed to it. In fact, many people, they are actually cannot deal with the uncertainty. So higher resilience you have towards uncertainty, you will progress automatically in your career. So very important is your anti-fragility, or the ability to deal with the uncertainty is I would say one of the great traits. And I have seen last 25 years of my career that people who has the traits, they always move up their career ladder very quickly. That's one first quality. Second thing is I always tell my team members is that company and technology will come and go, but the human relationship will stay. To give you an example, you write some code today. 5 years from now, there's a 99.99% certainty that you will not remember a single line of code, but you will remember who was your coworker and what was their behavior, what was their relationship you have got. And this relationship has a network effect. What that means is that today the person who is your coworker, tomorrow that person is your reference. So what that means is that building the relationship is that much important. That has a network effect. Don't forget that. What that means is that it goes back in your corporate environment. I apply this to my personal life as well. Giving people benefit of doubt. Try to work with people, because if you don't do that, you don't build this network effect. So very, very important is your, and of course, humility comes with that. Humility will come with that. If you don't have that, you will not grow. So having a humility, anti-fragility, relationship that has a network effect. If you have that, and of course you need to drive, but those are the, I would say, more of a traits, then you got to have that for you to kind of succeed in your career and in the industry, whichever industry you are in.
Rupen, one last and random question to you. When you're not working, what do you do to recharge or stay inspired?
I Two things I do. One is that I used to have a few hobbies and etc. But those are, I no longer, for example, I used to do very good calligraphy and etc. I had quite a few other things I could do, but I don't do this anymore. Right now, as a father of a 7, 8 year old kid, outside of work, 99% time I literally spend time with him and my wife. That's one thing I do. And besides that, I have a incredible appetite of reading various subjects, and I try to connect the dots. And this is for my own curiosity, own interest, as well as for my, seeing my son how to grow and learning. So I read extensively from, history, geography. I have a lot of deep interest in the history, geography, uh, uh, geopolitical thing, everything. I read it. I'll give you a very simple example so you kind of see that. My son recently got very interested in the ants. He got a glass jar. He wanted to build the ant colony, etc. So evening time we go out for a walk after dinner. And yesterday he has been talking so many things. He was talking about the ants. Then I told him a fun fact. I said, "Do you know?" He was telling me a lot of things that I did not know because I never researched on ant. I said, "Do you know? Ant is one of the few creatures. It can carry between 10 to 50 times of its body weight. There is another called the beetle. What is it? Dung beetle or something like that. That carries a 1,000 times. So then I said that, why they can do it? There's a whole physics and biomechanics behind it. So then I tried to talk to him. Then I myself, there are things I did not know. Then I tried to research. Then I said to him that, you can build this kind of microbot. And we started conversing. He's 8 year old. So I've been talking to him, and etc. So this kind of, going through this kind of intellectual curiosity journey is something I'm very interested. That's how I can spend a lot of time as well outside of work.
I'm sure your kid is having so much fun, and you're building up memories and experiences that he will take for life. So I'm happy for all of you. You have an amazing family, and I love hearing about it. Rupen, this has been an amazing conversation. I am so thankful. Great advice. I'm going to go back. I'm thinking of a million snippets we can take from this episode, and I'm sure the audience would love it. Thank you so much, and I hope that we can do this again in the future.
Absolutely, Macho. Thank you very much. And if there is anything I can do from my side, let me know. Thank you.